everyone. I am Reverend Christine Sherade Ketty. I am the pastor here at West Acton Baptist Church. And this is the first of a series of videos that I am planning to do to help us understand in a little bit more detail about what it means to be a member of West Acton Baptist Church. Some folks have expressed interest in becoming official members of the church. And it used to be back in the olden days that we would have an in-person class to prepare people for this. But with today's technology and also today's working schedules, it's getting harder and harder to get everyone in the same room at the same time. So I thought it would be beneficial to make a series of videos that we can watch and that prospective members could watch. And that even those of us who already are members of the church could watch to refresh ourselves on what it means to be a member of West Acton Baptist Church, and to be, because you are a member of the church, which also makes you a member of the American Baptist Churches of Massachusetts and ABC USA, which is the American Baptist Churches of the USA. So when you join our church, you automatically get grandfathered into a couple of other organizations as well. What does it mean to be a member here at West Acton Baptist Church? Essentially, my view of membership is not so much by the book, but we do have bylaws here at the church, which are a series of laws that the congregation has voted on many, many years ago, and they are set up by the forefathers of our church and foremothers to tell us how things should go in the church. And we have to follow those because they have been voted on by the congregation. So there are certain processes that are expected for us to do with prospective members. And essentially, as a member, the main thing that you get to do is you get to vote in the life of the church. Our church, like all American Baptist churches, practice what is called congregational church polity. Polity is a fancy word for government. So congregational church government, which means that our church is run on a congregational government model, which means that it's basically a democracy. And the congregation votes on pretty much everything that happens within the church. I don't have a say in deciding things as a pastor. We are not a hierarchical denomination, which means there isn't a hierarchy. We are all this way. So you got to think of it in a lot of denominations like Roman Catholic, Episcopal, Lutheran, I can think of many others, Methodist. It's like this. There's, the people down here, and then the pastor is the next level, and then the pastor might have a bishop over him, and then the bishop, it goes on up. We don't work like that. Everybody is this way. I have no authority. I am a member of your congregation, and I vote with you on things. I can suggest things. I can educate you about things. I can share my opinions and beliefs about things. But ultimately, the church decides everything together as a community. And that is one of the things that I love about our denomination. And one of the reasons I chose to become an American Baptist, because I did not grow up in this denomination. I grew up as a Roman Catholic. And then in my 20s, I had left Catholicism when I was a teenager and was not churched in any denomination for a number of years. And then in my late 20s, I came back to the church, and I was in the Episcopal/Anglican world for about 20 years. That's where I started seminary, where I started my process of becoming an ordained minister. And I ended up deciding in that process that I did not like the way that the church was governed. I did not like having a hierarchy. long story, but I chose to look for a different denomination and ended up, through another long story, which you'll hear in another day, as an American Baptist. And I have been ordained now just a little over 5 years. I served for 2 years prior to my ordination as an associate pastor. So I was the associate pastor for 3 years at First Baptist Church in Westwood. The third year that I was there, they ordained me. Then I worked for a number of years on our denominational staff, and then took this job a little over a year and a half ago. This is my first position as a solo pastor and not an assistant. And prior to that, for 32 years, I was a preschool teacher. So that's a short little story about me. Who are we at West Acton Baptist Church? We have a long history here. As you may have noticed if you've been in our building, the building dates back to the 1800s. The church has been here for a long time, many years, many hundreds of years. The church has always been invested in our community and a vital part of this area of Acton, which is called West Acton. And specifically, this area where we are in is West Acton Village. And we are a part of the village and have been here for quite some time. Our church is a very welcoming and warm church, and we are looking to get reinvigorated after a period of some time of challenge, frankly. During the pandemic and right prior to the pandemic, the church experienced some ministry turnover. We had a pastor here for 20 some years that was very beloved and committed and long-term pastor here, Pastor Jeff. And after Pastor Jeff left, there was a series of pastors who came. Nobody stayed for more than a couple of years. Not due to any fault of this church. The people here are wonderful and kind and welcoming, and they treat their, at least in my experience, treat their pastor very well. It was really just a set of odd circumstances that happened in a couple of different pastorates that people didn't end up staying. And then there was COVID, and the pandemic caused a lot of churches to be sort of stalled and frozen for a while. And we are just coming out of this period of, I want to say like probably 8 years, maybe longer, where things were kind of frozen. The pastors came, they were only here for a short time. They never really got things off the ground. Then the pandemic happened. Like many churches, everyone was just sort of spinning their wheels, but survived, which is a miracle and wonderful because a lot of churches didn't survive the pandemic. We are a small but mighty church. We have about 40 active members on our roster, and you might not see all those people on Sunday, but chances are they are involved. If they're not here on Sunday, they are involved with something during the week or something behind the scenes that you may not see. And everyone helps out. Many people have multiple responsibilities in the church. The church is run by a series of teams. So we have like a facilities team that manages the building. We have a discipleship team that deals with educational aspects of things. We have a worship team that deals with the music and the Sunday service and how that's going to run. We have a missions team that deals with how we are running and giving to various local and overseas mission projects. So we have this series of teams. And in order to be on these teams, not all of them, but some of them, require you to be a member of the church. So, in another reason why it's good to want to be a member is that it not only allows you the ability to vote in church decisions, but it also allows you to participate in some of the ways the church is run that you might not be able to do if you were a member. When you come to me or another member of the church and inquire about what do I need to do to be a member, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to schedule a meeting for you to sit with me and chat. And in that meeting, I'm going to give you these two pamphlets, which tell a lot in a nutshell about our denomination and what it means to be an American Baptist. In that meeting, I'm also going to ask you to share a little bit about your faith story, about your background, about your beliefs, and about why you're interested in becoming a member of our church. After that initial meeting, you will then be given this video to watch. And there will be a series of other videos that I'm going to make over the next few weeks that everyone in the church is going to get and can watch or not watch as they feel called. But that will, I feel like while we're doing this and while we have folks that are interested in becoming more involved in the church, it's a good time for us to all brush up on what it means to be part of the church and what it means to be an American Baptist. And so I'm going to go back to doing what I had called my Wednesday Word series. And I'm going to go back to doing those on Wednesdays. And they are going to be short 10, 15-minute videos around different topics having to do with the denomination and how it's governed and what are some of our theological beliefs and the church itself. So keep an eye out for those videos. They're going to be coming over the next few weeks, and you can watch them and get yourself brushed up on what it means to be a member here. So the first thing I want to say is that I'm going to read you our mission statement, which is on the cover of our bulletin, which I had pulled out for me to have to read to you. And here it is. Sorry about that. This is on the bottom. You'll see when you come to church on Sunday, on the Sunday bulletin, you will see at the bottom right here is this little paragraph. And it says, members of the West Acton Baptist Church represent different communions but one fellowship, varied beliefs but one faith, many viewpoints but one Christ. We agree to differ, we resolve to love, and we unite to serve. And I love that mission statement because it really hits to the heart of what it means to be Baptist. The first thing I'm going to say is when you hear Baptist in New England, a lot of people have misconceived notions. Southern Baptists are sort of the most visible of our Baptists that we see. And when people hear Baptist, they automatically think Southern Baptist. We are American Baptist. It's not Southern Baptist. At one time, there was one large group of Baptists, and then they split in the 1800s around the issue of slavery. The Southern Baptists wanted to be able to hold on to their slaves and still be able to be active leaders in the church. And there were a number of folks at the time who believed that holding slaves was a conflict for someone who was a Christian, and that people who were slave owners should not be allowed to be leaders in the church. And the church split over that and then became Northern Baptist and Southern Baptist. The Northern Baptists were against slavery. Southern Baptists believed that there were parts of the Bible that actually endorsed and promoted it, which there wasn't, but that's what they believed. And so that what was the Northern Baptists ended up eventually becoming renamed as American Baptist, and that's us. So our church, over the years, our denomination has traditionally been about social justice, about progressive causes, often, not always, and generally a little bit less literal in their reading of the Bible. Southern Baptists to this day still do not allow women to be ordained pastors. So I would not be allowed to be a pastor in a Southern Baptist church. Southern Baptists also do not practice welcoming and affirming inclusion of LGBTQ persons, which is also not something that I believe in, and I am an ally and practice welcoming and affirming all people. And our church is actually currently in the process of becoming officially recognized as a welcoming and affirming church. We have been a welcoming and affirming church for many, many years, and people have been welcomed to be a part of the life of the church, regardless of their orientation or practice, but we haven't officially done this publicly, and so we are in the process of getting ready to do that. So American Baptists have a lot of differences from Southern Baptists, but for some reason, because Southern Baptists tend to be more visible and more in the news, and there are many more of them, there's this misunderstanding, especially in New England. People hear Baptist and they immediately think, like, I'll meet people in the street and they find out I'm a Baptist minister and they go, wait a minute, how can you be a woman and be a Baptist minister? And I'm like, I'm American Baptist. That's different. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to do to educate our community, and that's one thing that I am going to hopefully be working on going forward as the pastor here. All right, I'm about halfway through. We're at 16 minutes, and I've only scratched the tip of the iceberg. So, what does it mean to be an American Baptist? Well, first off, to be any kind of a Baptist, the main thing that you will notice, and it's distinctive in our name, Baptist, is that we as Baptists do not practice infant baptism. We practice what is called believer's baptism. So one of the significant tenets of being a Baptist is that we believe that it should be a person's choice to be baptized, and infants can't make that choice. So therefore, we believe that there needs to be a certain age for someone to be able to understand that they want to make a commitment to Jesus in the form of baptism. Different believers have different ideas about what is that age of consent, and it varies in the church. Generally, folks get baptized somewhere in their teen years. I have heard of other ministers who've baptized people younger than that if they felt that the person really could exhibit an understanding of Jesus and why they wanted to be baptized and why they want to be a follower of Jesus, and have it be recognized in this way. So as with everything that you're going to find out in the Baptist world, there's no hard and fast rule about a lot of things. And there's a lot of freedom within our tenets for individual believers and pastors to make those choices based upon their own conscience. So I suppose what I would tell you for me as a pastor is, if somebody came forward to me and expressed a desire to be baptized and could explain articulately why they wanted to be baptized, I would most likely consider baptizing them, depending on their age, but in likelihood, if they were able to make that decision on their own, I would do that. So we also only practiced what are called 2 ordinances. You might have heard them referred to as sacraments in other churches. We call them ordinances. And the only 2 that we practice in the Baptist faith is baptism and communion. That's it. We believe that those were the 2 ordinances that were instituted by Jesus, and that those are strictly what we practice. We don't use the word sacrament, and we don't practice other sacraments. We practice simply baptism and communion. We practice communion once a month on the first Sunday of the month during our Sunday service. And again, there's some theological differences in that, and different people have different beliefs about whether communion should be every Sunday or only once a month. And There's variety within that, but generally the general practice in most Baptist churches is to do it once a month. As I mentioned, we practice what's called congregational government, and we also have what is called local church autonomy, which is a very fancy way of saying that each congregation is responsible for itself. Again, we have no hierarchy over us. We have a denomination, and the denomination has a staff, and that denominational staff is there to support churches, to help educate churches, to intervene in church conflicts, to have conferences which help to train church lay leaders and pastors, to fill in for us when we need someone to cover if we're away and we need someone to cover our pulpit. There are numerous ways that the denominational staff supports us, both as churches and as leaders and pastors, but they don't have any hierarchy over us. Everyone, again, is on the same level. So Mary Miller, who is our executive minister, can make suggestions. She can pray for us. She can advise us, but she cannot tell us to do anything, and she can't speak for us. Each congregation is responsible and practices individual autonomy. So we are a group of many, many congregations who work together as partners and share with each other and come into do projects together, go on conferences together, go on mission trips together. There's a lot of working together in our denomination, but nobody has a hierarchy over anybody. We are organized in what is called associations. So our denomination, which is the American Baptist Churches of Massachusetts, that's our region, Massachusetts, and we are the region of TABCOM, which stands for the American Baptist Churches of Massachusetts. And then within Massachusetts, we are split up into what is called associations. Our church, West Acton Baptist Church, is a member of the Samuel Stillman Association. The associations are roughly organized kind of geographically so that you would be able to get together with churches that are in your same association and do things together and support each other and work on projects together, and ministers can get together to support each other and be in clergy groups together and pray for one another and all that stuff. Ours is the Samuel Stillman Association. So when you become a member of our church, it is expected that we would also be active in both our association's activities and our region's activities. So there's more than just becoming a member of what's going on here in our little church in West Acton, but it's also a blessing that we have the opportunity to become involved and partner with our wider Baptist friends in our association and within our TABCOM region as well. And there are a number of things that happen throughout the year, conferences and meetings and gatherings where we can gather together and be with other churches, because there's an amazing amount of diversity within our denomination. We have congregations in TABCOM. Brazilian congregations. We have one of the Brazilian congregations who meets right here in our building on Sunday nights. They have their worship service on Sunday evening, and they meet here in our building. We have Brazilian congregations. We have Haitian congregations. We have Ghanaian congregations. We have congregations from other countries in Africa. We have Chinese congregations, Korean congregations. I can go on and on and on. There is so much diversity in the Baptist world. When I first became an American Baptist, I went to Westwood, the church that ordained me. And Westwood is very similar in makeup to our community here in Acton. It's mostly white, suburban, small town. And that church was made up that way, And the first time I went to one of our TABCOM conferences and walked into the ballroom at the Doubletree Hilton where we were having the conference and saw, heard all these different languages being spoken and saw people of all different ethnicities And they were all under the same umbrella of Tabcom. It was just so exciting to me. I wasn't aware that there was this kind of diversity within our denomination, and I've learned so much over the years of being part of this denomination. I've learned so much from my colleagues that are from different nations and backgrounds and ethnicities and speak different languages, and what a blessing it has been to be a part of this denomination. There's a couple of other things I'm going to say. I'm coming up on 5 minutes. I'm going to just touch on those briefly. As you would imagine, with one of our main principles being this sort of freedom for each individual believer to act on their own conscience, we have this principle called soul liberty or soul freedom. You might hear it both ways. And I'm going to read you this definition. It says, the individual soul is answerable to God and God alone. We are not answerable to a pope, a priest, a system, or an organization. None of these have authority over an individual in matters of faith, meaning that you as an individual have the responsibility of speaking to God, listening for what God has to say to you, reading the scriptures, understanding your faith. Nobody has authority to tell you what you have to believe or not believe, and you have the authority and freedom to interpret the scriptures for yourself. We don't need a priest to interpret them for us. We don't need an organization to interpret them for us. We can do this on our own in our own personal relationship with Jesus. That's basically what it means in a nutshell. And because we have this individual freedom, we fight for that individual freedom. And so religious freedom and the separation of church and state are extremely important principles to Baptists. We don't believe that anyone can tell us. The government cannot tell us what to believe. The church cannot tell us what to believe. It is a matter of our own individual conscience. And so the beauty of that is there's a lot of freedom in that and you're going to find a lot of Baptists who believe different things. And that's what I say often is Baptists are supposed to disagree well. That's what one of the principles is. And as you can see, when I read that mission statement, which I'm going to read it for you again as I close today, members of the West Acton Baptist Church represent different communions, but one fellowship, varied beliefs, but one faith, many viewpoints, but one Christ. We agree to differ, we resolve to love, and we unite to serve. So we are so excited that you are interested in becoming more involved in the life of this church. And I hope that this video has been helpful as a beginning to understand what it means to become a member of this church and some of the background and history. Of course, we can't do it quickly in a half-hour video. I'm going to be making some shorter videos over the course of the next few weeks to expound on some of the topics that I touched on tonight. And I hope that you will join us in many of our offerings that we have so that you can be with us and get to know us personally. That's the best way to have relationships. You can come to our Tuesday night Zoom prayer and conversation meeting, which happens every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock on Zoom. You can come to our Thrifty Thursday pop-up thrift shop, which happens every Thursday afternoon from 3 to 6 here at the church. You can come to Sunday worship, which happens every Sunday at 10 a.m., and you have the option of coming on Zoom or coming in person. And there are a lot of other events that happen throughout our year. We have our holiday stroll, which is coming up. That's sort of the next big church thing that's happening on the first Saturday of December. All of the businesses in the West Acton Village have different things going on, and folks in town go from place to place. That's why it's called a stroll. They get little maps, and at each location there's different activities for them to participate in, different things for them to do. And they come to our church. There's a big basket raffle that goes on in our fellowship hall. And this year we're also going to have a small holiday market, like a scaled down version of our Thrifty Thursday. And we're also going to have a candy raffle to support our mini food pantry. Didn't even mention the mini food pantry. That's another way you can be involved. We have a mini food pantry that is right outside the door of our church. At any time, you can bring items and drop them off in the pantry. And if you need to eat something and you don't have a way of getting food, at any time, you can go and take whatever you need from the mini pantry. That's another one of our neighborhood outreaches. So I'm coming up on 30 minutes. I'm sure I have forgotten some things. And as I think about it, I will add things over the course of the next few weeks. But this is at least an opportunity to get started and to start thinking about what it means to be Baptist, to become a member of our church, and to become a member of the wider Tabcom family. I'm going to close this with a little prayer. If you want to bow your heads with me and a spirit of prayer, let us pray. Gracious God, we are thankful for new life here in the church and new people who are interested in joining us on our mission in the community and in the wider world. I pray that this video has been informative and helpful, and I pray that if folks have questions or comments or anything, that they would reach out to me and that we would begin to have a dialogue about what it means to be part of this wonderful church. I thank you for everyone who has listened to this video, and I ask that you would bless our initiatives, Lord, in this church, and bless us in our mission, in our ministry, because we do everything in your name, Jesus. Amen. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.